Hello. Thanks very much for inviting me to give a talk at this unique PhD Open Day. My name is Christopher Chen. I'm the director of the Memory, Aging and Cognition Center, and I'd like to share with you today some of my thoughts about why you should do a PhD, how you should select a lab, and also to share with you what we are doing at the Memory, Aging and Cognition Center to try and make dementia a distant memory. So why do a PhD? There are, of course, many challenges. And the bad news is it will be intellectually demanding. It will be time consuming. It may be costly in terms of the fees you pay, some lost opportunities, and the relatively low income you have whilst you are a student. And definitely is physically tiring and could be emotionally draining. But of course, these are also the strengths of the PhD program. You need to be intellectually challenged in order to learn how to work in the knowledge economy. And it's not easy to make a difference to the world. So you have to learn how to discover new knowledge, develop new skills, deepen and widen your knowledge, and very importantly, be able to communicate with others what you have learned, what you're doing, and why it's important. It's time consuming, but believe me, 4 years passes much faster than you think. And by the time you're writing up your thesis, you wonder where it's all gone and you wish you had more time. Although fees are costly, there are scholarships, stipends, and grants, and NUS also helps part-time PhD students who are working in NUS with reductions in costs. And of course, you should think ahead whilst you're doing your PhD. Later, you will be able to enter careers in academia, not just academia, but other industries centered on research innovation. And what you learn, these skills you learn are transferable. So being able to work in a team, being able to solve problems, being able to speak and write clearly are vital for or any good job that you're going to aim for. And it is self-fulfilling to be able to do well in your chosen task. I can't deny it's physically tiring and emotionally draining, but you will be able to learn how to be more resilient and to be thick-skinned. And being thick-skinned is very important in academia. So here's an example of a rejection letter written to last year's Nobel Prize winner, Peter Ratcliffe from Oxford. Now, he survived this by plugging on, and that's what all of us do. Okay, not all of us will win Nobel Prizes, but we do need to learn to live with rejection and criticism. It's not personal, it's business. How should you select your supervisor? Well, I think that what I tell potential students is that really you should only do a PhD if you're interested in doing it, and not because there's nothing else you can think of doing. If you start a PhD, you really have to be committed to finishing it. No point giving up halfway. And you need to remember that a PhD is an entry qualification for your future career, not an exit. And that's because the process of doing a PhD is training in building up your creativity, building up your ability to criticize and to inquire, to negotiate, to be a professional, and to have confidence. Many people ask, how should you select a supervisor? And the first criteria must be whether you're interested in the field of research that your supervisor or your lab is working on. Secondly, you need to examine the lab and your supervisor and check, do they have a good track record in terms of obtaining grant funding? Because unfortunately, science cannot be done for free. Whether they are good at getting publications out, and publications mean that you have been productive. Whether they have built collaborations, and because in modern science, collaborations are extremely important. You can't work alone by yourself. And whether, of course, they have previously trained and graduated PhD students. You should have the chance, when you're doing your lab rotations or beforehand, to see what the research culture in that lab is and to see whether you fit in. And of course, whether you get along with the people in the lab and your supervisor. And these are very important interpersonal decisions that you have to make. Let's move on to talking about the Memory Aging and Cognition Center, which I lead. We work on 4 themes for what we think is a global phenotype of dementia and cognitive impairment due to an interaction of neurodegenerative diseases and cerebrovascular diseases. We collaborate with institutions within and without Singapore, and our 4 themes examine biomarker discovery, neuroimaging, clinical studies, as well as epidemiological studies. And we have a big focus on neuroimaging, including MRI, which you see here, retinal imaging, as well as PET. And we've been fortunate enough to be funded by the NMRC for the last decade, both in terms of center grants, individual research grants, as well as recently a large collaborative grant. And this is our team. You can see that it's full of young people, and I'm very glad it's also diverse. We have PhD students from Nepal, we have colleagues from Philippines, from China, from Japan, from the Netherlands, etc. So it's a good, diverse group of people. We've had previous PhD students, and I just want to point out that my first PhD student, Dr. Mitchell Lai, is actually now my close collaborator in NUS, and that's very gratifying. We've had several PhD students over the years, and most recently, Saima Hilal graduated in 2016, went for a postdoc in the Netherlands, and now has returned to NUS as an assistant professor in the School of Public Health, and I really look forward to working with her. Our current PhD students cover a diversity of fields, including biomarker discovery, animal models, which I supervise together with Professor Arumugam, and also neuroimaging. Our current core research projects, which we offer PhD students, include the molecular pathology and of cognitive impairment and dementia, biomarker discovery, dementia neuroimaging, prospective clinical studies for neuropsychology and other clinical features, the study of the epidemiology of dementia in the community, particularly focusing on ethnicity and other risk factors, and of course, clinical trials for cognitive impairment and dementia. This is a very busy slide showing what we've achieved in the last decade. I think it's important to say that we've been very productive in terms of recruiting patients. On the left of the screen, you see that our longitudinal study, we recruited 700 patients over the last decade, and we have a very good retention rate for their follow-ups over the next 5 years. And we've also recruited a multi-ethnic community-based cohort. All these subjects are deeply phenotyped with clinical examination, blood biomarkers, neuroimaging, as well as retinal and cardiac imaging. These are a list of papers that our PhD students have published in the last 2 years, 2019 and 2020. And just to show that we expect our PhD students to be productive and that they are. The other thing that we do are clinical cohort studies as well as clinical trials. And I think that's important to say that we do a variety of trials, including those that are sponsored by industry, and we are focusing on anti-amyloid trials at the moment. But I just want to end by telling you about a multi-lifestyle trial that we're doing. And this is the SINGER study. So this is based on the groundbreaking FINGER study, which randomized subjects to cognitive training, diet, exercise, and vascular risk modification, and showed that you could actually prevent cognitive impairment. So what we did in Singapore with the help of NUS was to do a pilot study to show that we could implement these interventions in Singapore. And what we are going to do now is a much larger study, 1,200 people, 2-year intervention program with a lot of biomarkers to investigate mechanisms. And this has been funded by NMRC LCG starting from next year. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope that some of you will consider working with us. Thank you.